Good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time of day it is where you're at. Welcome to Collider Dailies. I'm John Algetz, and joining me today is Mike Thomas. Mike, good to have you back. How you doing?
I'm doing really good. Thanks for having me back. I love hanging out with you, talking movies, so this is going to be a fun one.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a great one, especially because we have actually some pretty fun topics today. I'm pretty excited about. We're gonna be talking about X-Men '97 directors wanting to take part in the potential future MCU live action adaptation of X-Men. Shang-Chi sequel is apparently still happening according to Simu Liu. But before that, we got to talk about the big one, the big news that we all kind of thought were jokes when we first heard it, but apparently is an actual thing. Keanu Reeves is Shadow the Hedgehog in Sonic the Hedgehog 3. He is going to be playing the genetically engineered, edgy hedgehog with a chip on his shoulder. And honestly, I could not be more excited. Mike, how do you feel about this? Is this the casting that you wanted? Is this everything that you were hoping for?
This is like one of those things, like you said, it didn't feel real when we found out at the time, because this is one of those fan castings where it's like, yeah, Keanu as Shadow, that makes perfect sense. In a perfect world, we're never going to get that. And so when we saw that announcement, it's just like, oh, this is legit. I'm excited. This is perfect. Everything you described about Shadow, I think Keanu can bring that to this performance. Now I'm really interested to see if they commit and give Shadow a gun and like echo those John Wick memes that we already know are cooking in a lot of people's minds.
I kind of feel like, okay, here's my thing. It's a kid's movie, so that makes me lean towards Shadow's not going to get a gun. Or if he does get a gun, he's not going to use it. Like, he'll probably like show up, point it at Sonic, and they'll be like, put that away. And then like, that's the last that we see of it. But at which point, why bring in Shadow then? Because like, to me, you bring in Shadow because you want the edge. You want the like dark, brooding hedgehog who like goes above and beyond Knuckles, dark and brooding. So I mean, I feel like you gotta, right?
I feel like you have to, especially like, we know Knuckles is getting his own show, and like next week it comes out, right? Yeah. Roughly. So the escalation to Shadow from Knuckles, I feel like makes the most sense. So like, you want to be like, hey, yeah, Knuckles was a formidable foil for Sonic in Sonic 2, but this guy is on a completely another level. And especially if this is going to end at a trilogy, I think that would be a really good way to kind of round out that story, going to the most extreme. Again, like you said, it's a kid's movie, so they can't go that far, but they can go about as far as the Sonic games did. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, but let's not forget that like Shadow's backstory in the games is very dark and involves like a dead little girl and like gets really kind of screwy. I'm curious how much of that is gonna make it to the screen, or if it's just gonna be like, hey, look, it's another pissed off hedgehog. We aren't gonna dive into the whole thing with the like ultimate evil or whatever the heck, the ultimate life form Sonic adventure storyline. I would actually be curious to see if this film is going to borrow from that storyline with the ultimate life form in this. It was Sonic Adventure. Was that 1 or 2?
I think it was 2. I'm sure somebody in chat will correct us if we're wrong.
Yeah,
but
I'm not like, I played the Genesis Sonic games, and that's kind of where my connection to Sonic ended. So I kind of missed out on the adventure games, but either way, I'm excited to see Keanu Reeves voice this character. I think that it'll be interesting to dive into, and just to hear Keanu Reeves of all people do it, I think would be a good time.
Yeah, I think he rounds up the cast nicely because he's playing off of Idris Elba and Ben Schwartz, and like those guys are already really great in those roles already.
Yeah.
So adding Keanu to the mix, I think, will be very entertaining at least.
Now, here's the question: if they were to add any more characters from Sonic's like extended character roster, who would you like to see them add in next?
Ooh, that is a good question. Oh, I think for me, Knuckles and Shadow were my big ones. So like, I'm already very satisfied personally. But I'm sure they can pull from the extended cast. Like I'm surprised we haven't gotten like Amy at all
Yeah,
in this franchise.
to me, getting Knuckles when we did made sense. But the fact that we haven't gotten any like hints or anything at Amy is the one that really surprises me. Because I feel like outside of that main trio, she's like kind of the next biggest character, but that's me. I think that when we get to the point where they're introducing characters like Silver the Hedgehog, that's when we're like, okay, maybe it's time to like to back up a little bit on the series, because you're getting a little crazy at that point. So I doubt that we'll ever get to there, but
you know
who knows?
what? That Paramount needs to commit and work with Nintendo so we can get the Olympic Games. Get Mario in here. Who cares?
I'd watch that. I mean, we had a Super Mario movie that did pretty well. These Sonic movies are doing pretty well. Let's just have that crossover. Chris Pratt talking to Sonic, having a good time.
Right.
I think it'll be pretty good. So yeah, looking forward to that. We'll see how that works out. There's going to be plenty of John Wick memes, if there aren't already just a ton of them floating around. Next up, Simu Liu says that apparently Shang-Chi 2 is still in the cards. He was recently talking to fans who were asking him plenty of questions about things, and one of them basically just came up and said, like, hey, it looks like Shang-Chi 2 isn't happening, or we aren't hearing anything about it. To which Simu Liu responded, I promise it's happening. So at least according to him, it seems like Shang-Chi is still something that is in the works. Do we really feel like we need a Shang-Chi 2 though, is the question.
I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are, John, on Legend of the Ten Rings, but I did love the first Shang-Chi movie, so like I am beyond excited to get a sequel. Yeah. That said, I don't know what like Marvel's doing right now. It feels like they kind of missed their window. Like that probably should have been a release last year or this year.
Yeah.
But they seem like they're probably on track for like maybe 2026 at the earliest. So
well, and I'm curious if, like, let's say that Shang-Chi 2 has been in the works for a while now. I'm curious how much the strike had an effect on it.
Yeah.
Would be the question that I would kind of raise. For me though, like I liked Legend of the Ten Rings quite a bit. I liked the character. I liked the cast. I liked the way that the movie was presented. I liked a lot of the production design and the world that it presented. But to me, the movie almost felt like they were setting up Shang-Chi just to appear in other movies and not necessarily to be a standalone character, especially with the way the movie ended with Wong showing up and being like, hey, let's talk about the rings and blah, 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 blah. It felt like it was less, hey, Shang-Chi's going to be his own standalone character and he's going to be doing stuff, and more like Shang-Chi's going to be popping up in other people's movies from now on. So I'm a little bit, I'm not going to say that I wouldn't be excited to get a Shang-Chi 2, but I'm just a little bit hesitant to say that it's something that we absolutely need at this point, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I also am just interested in like where is it as far as like Marvel's priority, right? Because we know the director was originally attached to do the next Avengers movie, and now he's doing Naruto apparently. So it's like it doesn't feel like it's anyone's priority right now except for Simu's, unfortunately. And like RWP said in the comments here, he did tear his ACL. So I wonder if that also had like a major effect on the production of this film. You're right, like they did set up a few things where it's like, yeah, they can potentially do a sequel with like his sister and all that stuff, but yeah, I don't really know where you go with it. I am excited to see what they do with it though. I did like the character. I think it had some of the best action, like hand-to-hand combat in all of the MCU movies. So from that aspect, I want them to do another one, but yeah, it's in a really weird spot because it feels like it's not that important in the context of this multiverse saga.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree there. Arrow says, yes, we do. Shang-Chi 2 is a must. It was a great film. The culture on display was perfectly done. The humor was hilarious, and the lore of the Ten Rings worked. So they need to expand on that. Here's the thing. I feel like they're going to definitely expand on the Ten Rings. Like, honestly, I'm surprised they haven't expanded on it already. I kind of half expected it to be expanded upon in things like Quantumania and things like that. I kind of half expected it to be like quantum tech that were what the 10 rings were. But yeah, I feel like it's gonna be expanded upon. I just don't know about necessarily in a Shang-Chi 2. As I said though, wouldn't be opposed to the idea. RWP says I felt like his movie felt very separate and love that. The Wong stuff at the end didn't bother me, but I didn't need it. That's fair. It definitely did feel I feel like this movie and Eternals both felt very disconnected from the MCU. And I wonder how much that is hurting their possibility of getting sequels. It very much seems like the Eternals, like we're not getting anything more with that. Like we've had some behind the scenes rumors and stuff that have said that we're not getting anything else there. So I wonder if that might also be the case here, where it was just like maybe Marvel felt that it was too separate and too put away. But I don't know.
That's fair.
Yeah, Sam Red says Shang-Chi arguably has the best MCU fight sequence until the third act, which is heavily reliant on CGI. Yeah, the movie did very much suffer from MCU's problem of they didn't have a sky beam, but they might as well have because just a CGI just fest. I want to say things that I can't say on air.
I get it, but I will say, you know, we got a dragon instead of a sky beam. I'll take it.
I would rather take a dragon.
Win some, you lose some, you know?
But so I am very much curious. You guys are definitely sounding off on whether or not you want a Shang-Chi 2. Keep it coming. And after we talk about our next topic, maybe we'll go back to the chat. We'll get some more of your guys' thoughts. But our next topic here is a pair of directors who worked on X-Men 97 have said that they would like to take part in a live-action MCU X-Men film. The two directors were Chase Conley and Emi Yonemura. Both of them have worked on the show. Conley has directed episodes 2, 4, and 6, and Yonemura directed episodes 3, 5, 7, and 9. So a few episodes we haven't seen yet, but still. They were asked if they would be if they had any desire at all to be part of the MCU's first live action X-Men movie, and they each responded positively. Conley said, quote, "If that's a call that we get at some point, I'm going to pick up the phone for sure." And Yonemura said, "I would never say no to that phone call because I love a good challenge and I love trying new things." Have you been watching X-Men 97?
Yeah, I actually got caught up yesterday.
Nice.
That last episode was brutal. No spoilers, but yeah, it's great. It's a great series.
Do you feel confident with the directing work that has happened in that animation enough that you would be cool to see these people step up for the live action?
Oof. You see, animation and television is very different from live action movies. And so I'm not familiar with their work outside of X-Men 97. So just saying, hey, we're taking the animated crew and bringing them to live action does scare me a little bit. That said, though, from a writing standpoint, from a direction standpoint, X-Men 97 is one of the best interpretations of the X-Men we've ever had. Like, they understand these characters on a level that I don't know if the live action MCU will ever achieve. Like that's the thing. It's like the bar has been set so high. I don't know if they'll actually be able to get there. One thing that does stand out to me though about X-Men 97 is that it's a very like self-contained story so far, where it's like we're following these characters in their everyday lives fighting these problems. Whereas we were just saying with Shang-Chi, he very much feels like he exists to be a part of a larger story. So my hope is if they were to be brought on for the MCU's interpretation of the X-Men, they'd be able to keep that essence, right? Of like, keep it true to those characters. Don't worry about setting up Avengers versus X-Men in 5 years.
As much as I would love to see that.
Right.
Yeah, that is something that I feel like would be the biggest challenge for them, would be having to, because they very obviously understand the source material. They understand what makes a good X-Men story. But I would be a little bit worried about them being buried under the baggage that comes with being an MCU property and what that means, and having to fit in as a cog inside this larger machine that is the multiverse saga, or whenever the X-Men films come. We don't even know if they're going to come within, phase 6, although we don't know what phase 6 has, because right now we only know like 3 movies that are in phase 6.
Right.
But I don't know. I think that I would be perfectly open to giving them a shot. Just because they have been doing such a good job. But you did make a great point that it is like a pretty big medium leap to go from animation and TV to live action feature film. But they've built up my confidence enough that they definitely at least respect what is going on. So I'd be totally down for it.
Yeah, and we know Marvel before has had almost first time directors making their projects, and they turned out okay, right? Like getting the Russo brothers from TV and making the end of the Infinity Saga and Captain America: Civil War. It's like,
yeah,
I think I trust Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios enough to where if they think they're a good fit, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and at this point, their work on the show, this is probably the best thing that Marvel has put out since Endgame. I don't feel like that's a stretch to say. The show is just absolutely brilliant, as many of you know. Like Maggie and I have been talking about it every single week, obsessively. And so, I'm on board for it. It just really comes down to how they approach it and how much control over it they would have would be the biggest thing. But yeah, I don't know. I'm on board for it. What about you all in chat? Let's see what you have to say. All in the Game says, what would people think if they tried to tie in X-Men 97 to their other animated shows? That is actually something that Maggie and I talked about a little bit. The possibility of doing like Spider-Man 97 or like Iron Man 97, bringing back the other animated shows and maybe tying them together as part of like an animated universe. We do know that based off of the tease that we got last week, that it seems like this upcoming episode that is coming out tonight at midnight, that Captain America's shield at the very least is in it. So it seems like there's going to be tying into the larger Marvel world that the X-Men exist in. We'll just have to see what that means. As far as tying it into other shows, there has to be other shows for them to tie into, but I'd be down for it. What do you think of that idea?
Because it makes total sense. Like you just said, they did tease like that's a possibility of those characters showing up. This was the original Marvel cinematic universe for for all intents and purposes. So like, I don't know if they'd get their own shows. Like, I don't know if we bring in Spider-Man the animated series back. But I would not be surprised if we had like a mini arc in the next season or so where it's like, the Avengers show up and Spider-Man shows up, because that's what happened in the original show anyway. They would cross over and bleed into each other a little bit. So I'm down for it. I do, again, though, want to keep the X-Men about the X-Men and not make it like a cameo fest. But
what if they did X-Men 97 versus Avengers? Like, do that comic arc, but do it in X-Men 97.
So one thing I love about X-Men 97 or X-Men the animated series in general, is that they are adapting comic book stories. And so I think the benefit of having it come back is now they can adapt more modern stories, more modern X-Men tales, right? So doing Avengers versus X-Men in this series, I'm actually really open to that, because I want them to start diving into stories that came out post 97, because the show didn't exist, so they can adapt them. So there's like decades now of new lore that they can get into. So that'd be really exciting.
I feel like something like that, though, I would want Avengers versus X-Men to be an overarching season plot. So like maybe season 2 or season 3 would be when they would do that. Just because I feel like this show is really, really good or really, really bad, depending on your viewpoint, of cramming entire comic arcs into one episode. I mean, everything with the Goblin Queen and Madeline Pryor, they crammed that into a single episode. And as awesome as it was, that could have been an entire season of the show. But that's how the animated series always was. They had a tendency to cram super long, super dense story arcs into like 1 or 2 episodes. Like the Phoenix Saga was like 3 episodes.
Days of Future Past was like 2, I think. And I'm just like, whoa. They pull it off though for the most part, so you know.
They do.
I want them to keep trying it.
Joseph Week says Spider-Man 90s is what made me his fan. You and a lot of other folks. I was a Spider-Man 90s kid. I grew up watching that a lot, more than X-Men, honestly.
Same.
I watched far more of Spider-Man the animated series than I did X-Men. I did watch quite a bit of X-Men, but X-Men was something that I watched when I got older. That was what I watched. Kind of the same with Batman the animated series, obviously different comic, but that was one that I didn't really watch until I was older. So X-Men was very much that way for me as well. RWP, I would love a return of Spider-Man the animated series. Yep, and Steve also echoes that same thought. I want them to bring back 90s Spider-Man series. No love for 90s Iron Man? Is nobody over here asking for Iron Man Armored Adventures, whatever that show was called? I think
or the Hulk. He had a show. Nobody's asking for that to come back.
Did the Hulk have a 90s animated cartoon?
He did. It was Hulk. It was She-Hulk. It was a whole thing. It was.
And you know what? While we're at it, let's bring back that failed pilot for the Doctor Strange animated show.
Oh, God.
And the Blade animated cartoon that they wanted to do. If you look back at, especially Spider-Man tended to be where they did this a lot, where they would bring back, or they would introduce a character into Spider-Man. And then we found out later that they were introducing them into Spider-Man because they wanted to use it as a backdoor pilot for another animated series. It was like Blade, Doctor Strange, a few other people they did that with. Captain America was another one that they were like trying to launch a Captain America animated series.
Yeah, they did that so often that me being a stupid kid, I'm just like, okay, when the X-Men showed up in Spider-Man, I didn't realize they actually did have a show. And I'm just like, oh, huh. That blew my mind as a child. I never saw two shows crossover like that for the first time. It was wild.
But yeah, bring back 70s live action Hulk, says Voice of God. I like that you pulled up your own comment for that. Actually, you know, if you want to talk about who was the original Marvel Cinematic Universe, it was the 70s and 80s live action Hulk. It just didn't go anywhere because that show was another one that attempted to launch other Marvel shows.
Oh yeah.
Because from the Incredible Hulk, they tried to launch a Daredevil series. They tried to launch a Thor series. There were a couple of She-Hulk they tried to launch one from. There were a couple others that they tried to launch off of that they just didn't manage to. So, you know, and Marvel's been trying to create universes for a long time. Hulk animated is on Disney Plus, 2 seasons. Well, maybe I'll have to check it out.
It's not as good as Spider-Man and X-Men.
I mean,
it is kind of dumb fun though. So
I feel like that is a very, very hard bar to clear. So I wouldn't expect it to be as good as those 2 shows. But yeah. So with that is where we're gonna bring the show to an end. Let's take a second here to take a look at a few comments. All in the Game says Jodie Turner-Smith, now that she's in Mouse House with the Acolyte, might be in the running for Storm. If you watched our fan cast episode that Maggie and I did, Jodie Turner-Smith was my choice for Storm. So I support that.
I dig it.
That is a good choice. I did see an earlier comment from Arrow, who had another Storm casting that he would like, or that they would like. I have one request for live action X-Men now that Star Trek Discovery is over. Brings I can never say her first name. Martin Green to play Storm. I think she would crush the role with this new MCU era having the X-Men. Didn't think about her, but honestly, I don't hate it. She did a pretty good job on Discovery. She did a great job on Walking Dead. Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm still supporting Jodie Turner-Smith though. That's
my choice is Anna Diop. You may know her as Starfire from Titans. I think she'd be really good as Storm.
Oh yeah, she could do it. Real quick, Rattle. What is your main X-Men cast fan casting? Go.
Ooh, who are we considering main X-Men?
The main cast of the animated series. So
okay,
let's start with Cyclops. Hit me with who you got.
Cyclops is a tough one. I haven't given Cyclops much thought. I probably should have.
Just throw a name out. I'm putting you on the spot, so just toss one out.
James Marsden. Got him.
I mean, yeah, sure. He could come back and do it. I said Jared Padalecki, and Maggie said Glenn Powell. Those were our two.
Glenn Powell would be a good one. I will say I blocked him out my mind because he's my choice for Hal Jordan, and I'm like sticking to that until it happens.
I force myself to never think about Green Lantern in the cinematic space because Green Lantern is my favorite superhero, and I'm so badly burned by that Ryan Reynolds film that I'll just like,
That's
we're
fair.
not getting Green Lantern movies. Like, just get that out of my head.
That's
Jean
totally
Grey.
fair. Jean Grey. Ooh, I don't have a Jean Grey one yet, so I'm gonna stall while I think about that. I do have Wolverine though, and I think Jeremy Allen White checks the Wolverine box for me.
It's a solid one. Both me and Maggie went with the very popular fan pick of Daniel Radcliffe.
I like Daniel Radcliffe too. I'm gonna be that comic guy of like I need Wolverine to be under 6 feet tall.
Daniel Radcliffe's only like 5'8", so.
Oh yeah, I know. That's why I said he's great, but like in my mind, it's like that eliminates half of Hollywood right now.
Oh yeah, no, you need a short king for Wolverine. He is the definition of that. The Iron Claw Zac Efron is Wolverine.
Ooh, Zac Efron is a very underrated actor. People still get hung up on the High School Musical days, but like, no, he's really solid.
He's more than proved himself since then, like 100%. Just throw out any casting that you got at this point. Any that you've thought of.
Any that I've actually thought of. Okay. I love the idea of Denzel Washington as Charles Xavier. That's one that I've thought about, and I'm like, that's so out there. I kind of dig it.
I don't hate it. I would have never thought about that, but I don't hate that. We didn't actually even fan cast Xavier because we were doing the 97 cast. So Xavier
R.I.P.
dead on the show, so we didn't even do that. What do you got for Magneto? This is the one that I'm curious about.
Magneto is it kind of comes down to what interpretation you want of Magneto, because X-Men 97 gives us like super sexy DILF version of Magneto. So it's like that's a whole new level of criteria that I didn't even consider when I was originally thinking about casting Magneto, right? But he's got to be somebody, I think, that has that gravitas that can go either way of like, sometimes he's the villain, sometimes he's the hero. Yeah. When I picture Magneto, I know Giancarlo is like a common fan cast choice. I think he could do it. I don't know if he'd be my first choice. Thinking about it, oof, especially if I'm going with Denzel as Charles, it has to be somebody who can match his energy. Case, you know what?
I don't hate that.
I don't hate that either. Yes. Not quite my tempo, but I buy it. You know what? I'll allow it.
My fan casting was Viggo Mortensen.
Ooh.
Just because I was like, I wanted somebody who could do the heroic sides to Magneto, because there is definitely that heroic side to him, but also at the same time could read as evil. And Viggo Mortensen has shown us throughout his career that he can do both. So yeah, that's what I would go with. Plus, I mean, I want more Viggo. I feel like my life is more devoid of Viggo than it should be. Like, I want him to be in everything.
That's how I feel with a lot of actors. Like, you know what? You deserve to eat and have like this big major role. So yeah, you're totally right there. Bryce Dallas Howard is Jean Grey. I'm reading Arrow's comment. Sorry.
Yeah, my only thing about Bryce Dallas Howard, yes. But my one thing is I'm worried if she's maybe a little bit too old.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, what's your age range for the X-Men? Because sometimes they're teens in school and sometimes they're just adults, you know?
Yeah. For me, it was just like young adults. Like, for instance, my Jean Grey pick was Morphin Clark. So that should kind of tell you like where I'm looking like age-wise. I think casting for Jean really depends on your casting for Cyclops, I feel. Like, you want them to be roughly kind of in the same range. So that's just where I sit with it. Just the same as like casting for Rogue. I feel like you cast Rogue with Gambit in mind.
Right.
But That's just how it is. With that, if you want to hear more of Mike's fan castings, I'm sure that he can post something about it on Twitter. So go ahead and check him out, Novice Cinephile on Twitter, or X. No, it's Twitter. Go over there and check him out. Mike, do you have anything coming down the pipeline that you want to plug? Any exciting stuff that you're working on for Collider?
Yeah, for Collider, I'm working on a review for Spy Family Code White. That movie comes out this week, so that review should probably be up in the next day or so. So stay tuned for that. I'm also topical for this episode. I am reviewing Knuckles. I have seen like half of that show thus far. Can't talk about it yet, but that review should be up next week. And as far as fan castings, yeah, if you just go on my socials, we do fan casting like every week. We just did the Teen Titans. X-Men was actually next, so I hate that I didn't have my list prepared yet because I actually am working on that today. But well, yeah, Novice Cinephile everywhere.
Then people will be able to check it out on your socials. They'll be able to see it. So you'll be prepared in the future. I put you on the spot this time. I was a little unfair.
You got the wheels turning.
Next, yeah, I'm just helping you out. They got a little bit of a taste.
Right?
Anyways, go check out collider.com, read his reviews, everything he's working on. Knuckles will be out. Can you at least say when the review will be out?
I didn't get the review embargo. The series is out on like the 26th, so I assume the embargo is going to be like the 24th or something like that. Yeah. Right.
Sometime before then. But
Spy Family for sure is this week though. So
okay, yeah. So check out Spy Family later this week. Look for the Knuckles review some point in the days before the show comes out, I would assume. But either way, get over to collider.com and check out all that. Check out anything that Mike works on. Check out anything that any of our talented team of writers work on. They do some fantastic work. Also, while you're over there, if you see a thumbnail for an article with a little play button in the corner and a time code down at the bottom, that means that there is a video element to it. And if you click on it, there's a pretty high chance that you're going to hear my wonderful, beautiful voice, because I am one of the team of people who make videos based on our articles. So get over there, check those out. Tomorrow on the show, I believe, is going to be myself and Perry. I need to double check the schedule on that. So if you want to check that out, be sure to be here. Same bat time, same bat place. But until then, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.